we're going to adjust them to levels consistent with the progress that's made at that point on the broader trading arrangements with the United States. Secondly, we will implement reciprocal procurement rules, ensuring that only Canadian producers and producers from trading partners that provide Canada with tariff-free reciprocal access through trade agreements can compete for federal government procurement
under the vast, unyielding skies of the Canadian prairies, where the wind whispers through golden wheat fields and the northern lights occasionally paint the horizon in ethereal greens. A quiet revolution brews, not in the halls of Parliament, but in the aisles of grocery stores and the glow of smartphone screens. It's October 23, 2025, and the tariff storm unleashed by U.S. President Donald Trump has not just rattled economies, it has awakened a fierce, patriotic pulse in the hearts of ordinary Canadians. From the bustling markets of Toronto to the cozy corner shops of Vancouver, shoppers are turning away from the familiar red, white, and blue labels of American brands, opting instead for the humble pride of Made in Canada tags. This isn't a fleeting fad or a politician's slogan. It's a visceral shift, born of betrayal and bolstered by resolve, where 43% of Canadians actively swap U.S. products for domestic alternatives, even as prices climb. Trump's February 1 emergency declarations, slapping 25% duties on non-USMCA compliant Canadian goods, escalating to 50% on steel and aluminum by April, ignited this fire. What began as economic necessity has blossomed into a cultural clarion call, Buy Canadian, a mantra that echoes from provincial premiers' podiums to viral threads, costing U.S. exporters an estimated $5 to $7 billion in lost sales through the year's first half. As the 2026 USMCA review casts its long shadow, this consumer-led defiance stands as Canada's most potent weapon, a testament to a nation's unyielding spirit in the face of a neighbor's protectionist gale. The spark ignited on a frigid February morning when Trump's executive order cascaded like a digital avalanche, imposing tariffs under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act that struck at the core of Canada's export lifeblood. Overnight, the world's longest undefended border transformed into an economic moat, with duties on everything from Ontario's auto parts to Alberta's lumber threatening $150 billion in annual trade. Canadians, long accustomed to seamless cross-border shopping, zipping south for Black Friday deals, or stocking pantries with affordable U.S. staples, felt the sting not just in wallets, but in pride. Trump's offhand quips about annexing Canada as the 51st state and his fentanyl-fueled justifications for the levies only fanned the flames. By March, Abacus data polls captured the swell. 62% of Canadians vowed to shun U.S. travel for the foreseeable future, while Legger's Trump Tariffs tracking report revealed 2/3, 67% in stores and 63% online, had already curtailed American purchases. This wasn't orchestrated outrage. It was organic, a collective exhale of frustration manifesting in empty shelves where U.S. bourbon once sat. In Vancouver's liquor stores, signs reading, Buy Canadian instead, loomed over barren spots where top American brands had been yanked, replaced by BC Rye that saw sales surge 25% per LCBO figures. Across the country, the movement coalesced around a simple ethos. If Trump would tax their labor, they would tax his leisure with their loyalty. At the vanguard of this shift stands the Buy Canadian sentiment, a grassroots groundswell that has woven itself into the fabric of daily life, amplified by provincial leaders who channeled public ire into policy. Ontario Premier Doug Ford's March 4 edict to purge American alcohol from provincial shelves wasn't just symbolism. It was seismic, emptying distillery stocks overnight and funneling demand to local craft spirits, where sales jumped 35%. In British Columbia, Premier David Eby's call to arms echoed through supermarkets, where proudly Canadian aisles, complete with QR codes via apps like MapleScan for origin verification, sprang up in chains like Sobeys and Metro, driving a 30% spike in tagged items. By September, Prime Minister Mark Carney elevated this fervor into federal doctrine with the Buy Canadian procurement policy, enshrined in the fall budget alongside a beefed-up $1 billion regional tariff response initiative. This mandate compels government buys from domestic suppliers, channeling $50 billion annually into Canadian veins, from Quebec cheesemakers to prairie furniture artisans. Retailers, sensing the tide, adapted swiftly. Loblaws affixed "Made in Canada" labels to 40% more shelves, while Nielsen data tracked a 15 to 20% uptick in local product sales since March. Even in discretionary realms, the pivot persists. Netflix subscriptions dipped 12% as viewers flocked to Crave, and Amazon Prime defections hit 22% in favor of e-tailers like Well.ca. It's a mosaic of micro-rebellions, where a Montreal shopper like Dan Levine trades California Cabernet for Okanagan Pinot Noir, not out of spite alone, but from a deepening emotional tether to home. Sector by sector, the consumer exodus from U.S. goods paints a vivid portrait of adaptation laced with sacrifice, where pragmatism tempers patriotism. Groceries, the daily ritual turned battleground, lead the charge. A National Post poll found 62% willing to pay premiums for Canadian produce, even if U.S. imports undercut by 10 to 15%. In Toronto's bustling markets, bins overflow with Ontario pork sales up 18%, while Washington apples gather dust, a direct rebuke to tariffed fruits. Loblaw CEO Per Bank noted in August that tariffed American categories saw 15 to 20% volume drops, some plunging 50%, as shoppers embraced local alternatives, boosting domestic sales amid the void. Alcohol mirrors this fervor. Quebec's SAQ and Ontario's LCBO axed U.S. wines and spirits in February, swapping them for Atlantic vintages. Imports cratered 60%, while Canadian craft beer soared 35%. Broader boycotts ripple into services and leisure. Flight Centre Canada logged a 40% plunge in U.S. bookings, with families redirecting to Banff hikes over Florida beaches. A Kantar survey pegged Canadian boycott rates at 61 to 85%, outstripping the UK's 45% and France's 52%, fueled by Facebook groups topping 1.2 million members and apps curating swap lists. From Michigan cherries to Manitoba Saskatoons, X amplifies the chorus. Irish Cat Dero's fact-check thread on boycott breadth snagged 776 likes, while RGB Atlantica's TikTok swaps racked up double-digit local boosts. Yet, cracks show 35% of boycotters gripe about inflated costs and sparse choices, with inflation ticking up 1.2% from supply hiccups, per dunnhumby economists. For many, like Levine, the trade-off stings. I love that Napa Valley bottle, but signaling resolve feels right. These internal efforts are not mere band-aids. They are reshaping Canada's economic sinews, forging resilience from the forge of adversity while exposing the fractures beneath. The "elbows up" rallying cry coined in Carney's April campaign, and now a Liberal lodestar, has galvanized provinces, crumbling interprovincial barriers under the One Canadian Economy Act to unlock $130 billion in GDP by harmonizing regs and spurring domestic flows. Industries thrive in the breach. Furniture makers report 20% order surges from procurement mandates, while clean tech snags $3 billion in R&D credits to offset U.S. auto tariffs that idled GM's Ontario lines. YouGov data underscores the emotional core, yet 70% express optimism for the next year, per the Canadian Survey on Business Conditions. This surge has swelled national pride by 10 points. Angus Reid polls show, with shops like Ottawa's Maker House booming 150% on A-branded wares. X threads capture the alchemy. Peter H. Ratcliffe's nod to credit-fueled boycotts drew 275 likes, affirming fiscal grit amid the push. Broader ripples include a 26.2% drop in U.S. exports since January's peak, partly offset by 24.8% surges to the UK, Netherlands, and Germany, while imports from South fell 10.8% in April, narrowing the trade surplus to $3.6 billion, the slimmest since 2020. Challenges persist. 100,000 manufacturing jobs teeter if U.S. reliance clings above 70%, and StatCan warns of heightened uncertainty, with 43.1% of firms bracing for volatility and 34.3% eyeing price hikes. Still, 70% of businesses remain upbeat, viewing tariffs as a catalyst for innovation, not inertia. On platforms like X, the discourse crackles with the nation's inflamed introspection, where defiance dances with doubt in a digital town square. Hashtags like eBuyCanadian have amassed 1.2 million posts since February, birthing user-driven directories like Made in Canada Deer, whose 5,000 daily submissions have exploded site traffic tenfold. Threads dissect the boycott's bite. Food professors lament on American apathy. 4,300 likes. Rallies resolve, declaring 80% believe it strengthens negotiations, while ex-Kia affirms, "I support Canada and buy Canadian full stop." Viral clips from ASIN mock Trump's dismissal of travel dips 4,900 likes, fueling schadenfreude as Clinton DeVoe decries auto flight, 379 likes, pitching China, EV pivots. Polarization simmers. Jasmine Lane blasts Trump fixation, 833 likes, but unity endures. MBS News. Maritime notes sustained fervor amid trade wars, 28 views, and Eddie Shep's poll parse 605 views, spotlights, 26% shunning U.S. trips. Conservative barbs, like Spencer Fernando's swipe at liberal bluster, 223 likes, clash with Mark Nixon 24's concession on job drains demanding deals. Even Gallagher Warboot's quip on persistent produce boycotts, 1,132 likes, underscores dug-in heels. This cacophony blending data, dumps, and defiance propels the movement, transforming tariff torment into tribal fuel, where a single maple leaf emoji becomes a badge of belonging. Beyond the border's chill, these shifts ripple into a redefined North American tapestry, casting Canada as both cautionary beacon and bold exemplar for tariff-weary allies. Trump's May 6 Carney sit-down laced with "Never Say Never" annexation barbs has scorched the special relationship, with 91% craving diversification per Angus Reid. U.S. giants like Stellantis mull southward flights, but countermeasures like Ontario's minerals card parry the thrust. Globally, the boycott inspires Denmark and Sweden, BBC reports, as EU pacts hasten. Domestically, it accelerates Carney's $5 billion resilience fund, though EV mandate pauses post. Northvolt's flop spotlight snares, Vox's wry observation. Canadians are out of this world angry, rings true in bourbon bans and border snubs. Yet Morning Consult cautions mutual agony, with U.S. car tabs potentially ballooning 4,700. For now, Buy Canadian pulses as a consumer symphony demanding dignity amid disarray, reshaping routines and realms. With the Supreme Court's November 5 IEEPA verdict on the horizon, vindication glimmers. But Canada's metamorphosis hints at a fiercer, freer tomorrow, where tariffs temper not timidity, but tenacity.